what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it. Brian Kelly meeting with the media yesterday and filling in on practice and what's been going on. Okay, you know what? I thought it was on here, but it's not. I want to get the opening of the press conference. If Taylor, maybe you just want to go to the find a video on YouTube with it. But it's basically when Kelly talks about acclimatizing to the heat, just so we can have some old heads. These youngins don't know what they're doing. But since we talked about Markway leaving.
What if we're the old heads?
We are the old heads. Okay. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Since we talked about Markway leaving, Kamori and Pimpton, Trades Green, they're going to be the ones that have to make up for it. Here is Brian Kelly, this is Kelly 9, on their progress.
You know, both of them have made really good progress. I think KP Pimpton has been really good as well. The last, I'd say, last two practices in particular, his consistency in run blocking, his consistency in catching the football assignments have been really good. And then I thought, you know, by and large, Trades has assimilated as a true freshman as well as we could have expected. Again, considering somebody that hasn't played a lot of football either, really pleased. They're both going to play for us, and they're both going to have a role. You know, I could imagine this one being such that, you know, you could potentially see all those guys, including Mason, on the field together.
Whoa. 13 personnel?
How about it?
Okay, now.
How about it?
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Remember, Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, that was tight end U.
Mm-hmm.
Who did Travis Kelce play for? BK. The man loves tight ends. And so, yeah.
As soon as you said
my bad. I didn't mean to. Let's go to this answer about Blake Baker. It's going to be Kelly 10. He was asked about Blake Baker's pressures, right, and why they're so effective. And the beginning of this answer, I think we can read into some of maybe what was wrong last year. Here is Kelly on Blake Baker's scheme.
It's great on paper if you have all of these great schemes and all these pressures, but if your players can't execute them, not so great. Our guys have been able to execute and play really fast in the system that Blake is employing. So it's the teachability of it, and it allows our players to continue to play fast without having to play with this paralysis by analysis, I guess is the best way I would put it.
I think somebody edited part of that clip because I think he said that when I listened to the press conference, I thought he said, like, as we've seen, you know, this stuff is great on paper, but if you can't execute it. And I couldn't help but feel that it was just a direct callback to last year where, I had heard an anecdote, and again, take this with a grain of salt. Maybe this is a rumor, but it's a rumor that reinforces the story, so I'll just tell it to you. But I had heard a rumor last year that at one point kind of an exasperated BK was brought another scheme from Matt House, like, look, like this could really work, and was basically like, I mean, if this man brings me another scheme where our guys can't even freaking tackle or line up right, like I'm going to fight someone. And so it speaks to, and I'm paraphrasing there, but it speaks to the difference of last year to this year. And it speaks to where Blake Baker is so strong, which we talked about, and that is communication. And that is tailoring the message to each individual player, figuring out how to get through to them and for them to understand ultimately what the responsibility within the scheme is.
You have to adjust your scheme to your talent, to your players. Like, you can have a scheme when you come in, but like you're talking about, you can do too much all the time. And if you can't get the fundamentals and the basics, which this defense clearly could not get a year ago. And I'm not even saying it's the player's fault. In fact, I'm not. I'm saying it's the coach's responsibility last year to be able to get your scheme integrated with your players. And if you can't do that on the basic things, again, we've seen these, some of these players do it in the past for other coaches, but you couldn't get that done. Why in the world are we going to try to be exotic and try to bring something different to it? You can't do it. You have to, and this is at all levels of coaching. And if we just stick with coaching football, I coach flag football. And if they don't get it, they don't get it. And that's on you to either make them understand it or you got to move on. You got to do something different. It's classic North Turner. If we repeated it, he would always be like, it's out. It's out. The Raiders aren't going to allow us to repeat it on Sunday. We're not repeating that play again. Get it out, right? But they didn't get it out last year.
No, and that is one of the key differences in NFL coaching and college coaching. NFL coaches can kind of force players to meet them where they're at because there's always somebody who is basically as athletic, ready to roll, except for the super freaks. Whereas in college, you kind of have to work more at the roster that you have. And so you have to make sure that you can bring your best physical talents up to speed. Now, sometimes you still can't, but a great college coach can more often than he cannot. Let's stick with the defensive side of the ball real quick. Once again, Ashton Stamps, PJ Woodland, having some real flashes. Once again, Brian Kelly asked against him. And once again, Coach BK kind of saying, look, let's be level-headed about this.
We've put together some good periods of time. There's no doubt that progress is being made, but not to the point where it's championship level play. And, I think it's going to be a journey for those guys in particular that we'll look for them to continue to put practices together instead of a good period and then a not so good period. And the great part about it is both of them clearly know what they need to do, and they're working really hard at it. I can see this uptick of performance like you can from a lot of those guys, and I would just say that after 5 practices, there's really good signs, but we got a ways to go.
So there you go, right? I like that, man, because as a player, you always want a very clear level of expectation. Mm-hmm. And BK saying, look, you're doing good, you're moving in the right direction, but it's not championship level. We're just going to call a spade a spade. And so we're going to continue to strive for that. Nobody's arrived yet. And, you stacked a good period, but what about a good practice? And then that's always the goal of camp if you're trying to win playing time. You got to stack days. And Woodland and Stamps being young players, they're still finding their way to that.
I wonder how much different this is from what he's done maybe in the 2 years before this to get ready for the opener. I wonder if it was, full throttle, day one, we have to give that championship effort. It's got, and not even effort physically, but mentally as well. We got to get it done today, day one. I wonder if that's different now this year, trying to get ready for week one. Again, knowing it hasn't gone your way the last 2 years, and for LSU's program the last 4 years, I wonder how much of that's different. Hey, we've got time. Let's don't panic. We've got some new here, certainly on that side of the football. Let's work up to a point that once we get there, we never look back and we go full throttle, pedal to the metal, all those old sayings. I wonder if it is different.
I wonder if that's a function of just having options for the first time, that you actually have a bit of a DB room for the first time in 2 years. Whereas 2 years ago, you just had to play the transfer. You didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
Last year, pretty much the same boat. I mean, this year you've got Sage Ryan you can bump down, which always they have been doing. You got J.K. Johnson, you got Jair Brown, you got Ty Alexander coming back from injury. So, you have a little more pieces to work with. And so...
And those guys don't have to play, not to cut you off.
Yeah.
Because you've got P.J. Woodland, you've got Stamps, you've got young players that might actually end up being the starters, but your transfers don't have to, out of necessity, just automatically Denver Harris be the guy.
No, and 2 years ago, Jarrett Bernard-Converse had to be the guy, and he was. And,
Denver Harris was not.
And Greg Brooks and everybody else. So, maybe it's a function of that. I'm not entirely sure. I just like hearing, though, that the expectation is clearly laid out for these players. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
Those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.